Hey, what's going on, guys? Elliot here, Apartment Bartender. So in this video, I want to talk about Mezcal. I had the opportunity to go around through the Taste of the Industry here at WSWA 76. One of the brands that really stood out to me was Casa Tribal. So it's a Mezcal, it's an emerging brand. I'm personally a big fan of agave spirits, Mezcal in general. At home, I make a lot of drinks, and one of the things that I have found when I talk to people, they have an interest in Mezcal. Maybe it's a little off-putting with all the smoke and stuff, but they do have questions about, what do I do with it? So that's what I want to talk about. Mezcal is a very, very diverse spirit. And one of the things that I do like about it is the depth that it can provide for a cocktail. For me, I like the smoke. I don't mind kind of the smokiness and the earthiness of it. Again, I'm a big fan of agave spirits, but a little bit does go a long way. So, one of the things that I recommend with any spirit is really trying it in classic cocktails, right? So think about a margarita, think about a daiquiri, think about an old fashioned. And so with the spirits, what you can do is you can sub out the base spirits in those cocktails and replace it with a mezcal. So think about, instead of a margarita with tequila, a margarita with mezcal, or an old fashioned with bourbon. You can switch out that bourbon and use a mezcal and make a Oaxacan old fashioned, right, with agave nectar. So there are a lot of really cool things with the daiquiri. As a traditional sour. So that's your base spirit, you have your fruit juice, and then you have your sweetener. You can remove that rum and use the mezcal in it, which in a sense would make it a margarita, but again, really classic cocktails that the spirit plays well into. So here, I'm gonna be making a tiki style cocktail, about 4 to 5 ingredients, really easy to make at home. So I have the base spirit in there. I already measured out the juice because I hate juicing, so I always measure it out. This is fresh orange juice. So we're having an ounce of orange juice, and then we have a ½ ounce of lime juice. For me, when I first started getting into Apartment Bartender and making drinks at home, I used to do photography for a liquor bar in Phoenix, Arizona, and one of the bartenders told me that when you're mixing with orange juice or pineapple juice, it's less acidic than a lime and a lemon. So I always kind of go to the ratio of using an ounce of orange juice or an ounce of pineapple juice to ½ ounce of lemon or lime, just to balance out the acidity. And then we got to add the sweetener. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a simple syrup because that's what's on hand. Alternatively, if you want to incorporate different flavors, you could change up the syrup. So think about, we have here a coconut syrup, coconut real. You can make a pineapple syrup, but if you're at home and you're making drinks and you don't want to overcomplicate it, one of the best things to do to inject flavor is to make a syrup, pineapple syrup. You can make a spiced pineapple syrup, or you can get as creative as you want to be with it. And then lastly, we're gonna add in some bitters. So again, I have what's on hand, and a lot of times that emulates what I do at home. I don't always have all the ingredients that I want, so you kind of have to get creative with it, but as long as you understand the basics of how to build a cocktail, you can still seek out balance. So here we have a Sichuan bitters, so hopefully adds a little bit more spice to balance out the sweet and the acidity of the fruit juice. So we're just gonna go ahead and add some ice. And again, if you don't have a preference for mezcal and you do want to balance things out, you can always look at what's called splitting the base, right? So you can do an ounce of mezcal and an ounce of tequila. You can do an ounce of mezcal and an ounce of gin, or alternatively, you can take the mezcal down to a ½ ounce and then sub in gin or tequila, or you can even rinse the glass with mezcal just to incorporate some of that smokiness. But again, there are a lot of different alternatives that you can do, but I think what not to do is just say, I don't like it, and then not try it. I think it's really important to try the spirit. Okay, so once we give it a good shake, this one's gonna be in a rocks glass. And again, earlier, like I said, if you want to use other syrups, like this Coco Real syrup, or this Real coconut, you can turn it into more of a tiki style and serve it over crushed ice. But with this one, just gonna go ahead and serve it over ice. And with spring and summer ahead, we have pool time, it's pool season, sun's out, guns out type of season, so this cocktail is perfect. I grew up in the Southwest, So I have an affinity, again, for agave spirits, and I have an affinity for smokiness and things that remind me of the Sonoran Desert and things that remind me of home. So hopefully this cocktail turns out like that. So gonna go ahead and garnish a cocktail, because you're never done until you garnish it. The presentation is just as important as the cocktail itself. Why? Because in this day and age, especially with social media, which I'm a little biased to because that's where I do my thing, people eat and drink with their eyes, right? So you really want to make sure that you're taking time to garnish a cocktail. So I don't have a name for this drink quite yet, but it's overflowing. I'm gonna take a sip. That's a super good drink. I'm stoked on it. Again, the Mezcal is not too forward, but the spirit still shines. It's mixed in well with the fruit juice, with the sweetener, with the bitters, so it's a well-balanced cocktail. 4 to 5 ingredient, doesn't take much. You can make this at home. So again, just to repeat the recipe, we did 2 ounces of Mezcal, we did 1 ounce of orange juice, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, we did 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, and then added some bitters. If you don't have these bitters, just sub out and use orange bitters or Angostura bitters to help round out the cocktail. So here you have a Mezcal cocktail. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the spirit that I love. Cheers, guys.